The United Nations says more than 90,000 Lebanese people have been displaced from the south of the country. Around 60,000 Israelis have been displaced from their homes on the border with Lebanon. Clearly, the drumbeat is that a ground invasion is in the offing. Would that be justifiable? Lord Kim Darroch is a former British ambassador to the United States and former national security advisor. Thank you very much indeed for coming on, Kim. The Israeli war machine has turned, hasn't it? It's moving north, it seems.
Yeah, it looks like, as you said, that the next stage is a ground invasion. There have been a lot of airstrikes on Lebanon, which look like preparation for that. And so it looks like a very serious escalation of the situation in the region.
You have been in important parts of the British government as Hezbollah and Israel have exchanged rockets before. To what extent, Kim, has this always been coming?
Well, it's an interesting question, Tom. This would be, I think, the third time that Israel has, if it happens, has launched a ground forces into southern Lebanon to try and to eliminate Hezbollah, to defeat Hezbollah. In the past, it happened in the 80s, happened in 2006. It has always failed. They have done a lot of damage. They have killed quite a lot of Hezbollah people. Sadly, quite a lot of Lebanese civilians as well, but they have never eradicated Hezbollah. And some of us would say it's the same as their attempts to eradicate or to defeat Hamas in Gaza. You can do a lot of damage. You can limit their ability to strike at you for some time ahead, but you're not going to win. You're not going to achieve your objective if it's the complete elimination of either of these organizations. Only diplomacy and ultimately politics will do that.
So the politics is going to have to change, though, because at the moment the politics seems to be certainly in Israel, very focused on fighting.
Yeah, let's be no doubt. There will be divided opinions in Israel about this. Not everyone will think it's a great idea. However, as you, I think, have said in previous programs, Netanyahu, it suits both his political coalition, which is dominated by hard right parties, and his own personal position, both to maintain the ground operation in Gaza and arguably to see if he can deliver a really heavy blow to Hezbollah in Lebanon, because they've had to evacuate parts of Israel because of Hezbollah rocket attacks, and he can claim legitimately, or he will claim that this is all self-defense and that Israel cannot tolerate its
to an extent.
Yeah, to an extent.
They are acting in self-defense. There have been hundreds of missiles launched at them for God knows how many years, including missiles towards Tel Aviv now.
Yeah, and it happens, as you say, regularly. Usually what the Israelis do is retaliate in a rather limited and specific way, and then it quietens down until the next rocket attacks come. But this is clearly an attempt to go further. And I think it's timed because they're already involved in Gaza. So, it's a question whether it's sensible to open up a second front. But since the war machine is already active in Gaza, maybe they assess this as the moment, apart from the reasons why it works for Netanyahu. This is the moment to go for it.
What's the potential other strategic aim? If Netanyahu knows in the back of his mind that he can't rid Lebanon of Hezbollah, they tried to do it twice, it didn't work. What else could be the strategic aim of creating a buffer zone between Lebanon and Israel that would make it harder for Hezbollah to fire rockets, perhaps?
Maybe, but that's a really big ask, because there are hundreds of kilometers of tunnels in that area, and as I say, not just defeating the Hezbollah troops that you can see, but eliminating those tunnels, blowing them up, and capturing and destroying Hezbollah rocket supplies. All of that is an awful lot to ask. The other thing, of course, is they would hope that by doing this, they're delivering a really heavy blow to Iran, who are Hezbollah's backers, and making Iran think whether actually this game that they have been playing, supporting Hezbollah, is really worth all the investment. But again, I'm afraid to be pessimistic about this, maybe realistic. It's never worked in the past, and I don't see why it should work this time.
Do you think the British government should support Israel in any ground offensive?
I think from what we've just heard of what the Prime Minister is saying, what we're saying to the Israelis now is very strongly, we don't think you should do this. But if it happens, and the Israelis will say that they're doing it in self-defense after all the rocket attacks, I suspect that it will be difficult for the British government to say that they are strongly opposed to it because of the legal complications of what has happened. And I think we will end up calling for ground operation to cease and for diplomatic solution to be found. But I think that the criticism of Israel for doing this will be quite muted. From the government, that is.
From the government, because we have long-standing support of Israel's the creation and continuation of the state of Israel,
yes, and the right to self-defense,
given that rockets are being fired on Tel Aviv and Haifa and other places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, our argument with the Israelis will be, this is not going to work.
Yeah. And
meanwhile, you're doing grievous damage, casualties to Lebanon's civilian population, and it's not going to deliver a comprehensive defeat to Hezbollah. And even if you stop their ability to prosecute further rocket attacks for a while, they will restock.
You, I assume, many times have been in the room with Netanyahu. Is this a man that you think goes out of his way to scupper peace deals, treaties to end fighting and take it through diplomatic or political routes?
Look, I don't think he's a man who is permanently opposed to diplomacy. I think he's a guy who very clearly, in his vision of Israeli security, believes that the sort of policies he's following both in Gaza and in Lebanon are the right way to go forward and to best protect the Israeli people. Now, saying that, I say it also suits his own personal position, and it shores up his coalition because far-right parties in his coalition will support all of this. I think it's, myself, profoundly wrong, and I think it's damaging to Israel's longer-term security interests. But he will argue, he will believe in his own mind that this is all about his role as Mr. Security for Israel.
Great to have you on the programme. Thanks for being there. Lord Kim Darroch, former British ambassador to the United States, former British National Security Advisor as well. You heard the Prime Minister speaking in New York in the last few moments at the UN Security Council as the United Nations General Assembly gets underway. There is no military solution in the Middle East, the Prime Minister is saying, as Israeli troops are positioned on standby at the border with Lebanon, and as the Israeli Army General says, we're creating these airstrikes, we're hitting these targets in preparation for your boots to possibly go on that ground. So a ground invasion looks imminent.